may have shown this before, but I'm getting ready to start cutting out the profile on the DP bracket. Okay, and what I've done is I have this 3-inch Harbor Freight clamp that I've cut down so that I can easily fit it here and reach it under the lip on either side. Okay, so now I just need to line it up visually with where I want the line. I want to try to get it hard against that so it can't pivot, but I'm not quite getting the right angle, so I need a little something to put in there to take up that space. Now I can bring it out a little more. Okay. Okay, so all of the load is going to be pushing this way against this, you know, and that should hold it. So, and part of the reason I picked a small 3-inch clamp, I'm not clamping anything too thick, but I also want the clearance right here. Now the reason for that I'm doing it this way and clamping it down, one, the cut comes out perfectly straight. If I were to stand this thing up and hand feed it in, it would wander around the place, stuff like that. It would require more cleanup to get it flat. And the other thing too is I could just stand here and watch this. I don't have to sit there and push this thing in to the blade for 5 minutes trying to get it to cut. So one, I'm lazy, and two, it comes out better. So what we have left here, we have that much left there. We need to round that off a little bit, that one a little bit. You know, that you can do it on grinder stone, even by hand, stuff like that. These other two seem a little bit big. You'd be kind of tempted to cut some of that off with the bandsaw. So I'm going to first try it on this really worn out belt. It's 40 or 36 maybe. I've got a brand new 60 sitting here, and we'll try that next. But we'll fire it up and see how easily it cleans this stuff off. That's certainly close enough for what we're doing. It might be a hair thick. It starts burning off the Sharpie marks. I'll change the belt over. Has a arrow on it for direction. The other ones, it's all worn out, so I can't tell anymore. So the new abrasive, the 60 grit, so it was half as coarse, but since it's new abrasive and cutting quicker, you saw how much nicer. I didn't put anywhere near as much force on there, and it didn't create anywhere near as much heat. So that's awesome. That's really nice. I like that. Starting to work on the mock-up for the DP brackets here. I got the outline cut and everything, and I've got it mounted up on here so that I can check it with the thickness. So let's run through this scenario first. This is basically the equivalent of the adapter that was on there with the other truck kit. It's not the right size for the seal, but it doesn't affect anything we're doing here. So this is the hard body rotor. And the reason I want to use this is because the top hat's a little bigger, and what that does is that gains me the space for the caliper clearance for stock wheels, so that I would not need to put a 1/8 inch spacer on the front here. The challenge though is as you can see, it pushes it back so far that we're rubbing right on the 1/8 inch, or the 3/8 inch thick plate. With it right there, now this is the shorter castle nut. It just makes it that, you know, I really couldn't bring it out any further. This is about as thick as the cotter pin. I'm running it in on laying it in its side. So I got plenty of room for the cotter pin. Yeah, see, and that's a little nicer. That's more like 50 thou. It took me a bit of digging around. These are the, I found the calipers, no problem. These are the 4-wheel drive or V6 hard body calipers, dual piston. These would be the ones that go on the big brake mod, which I'll be using here down the road in a little bit. But anyway, it bit me in the ass once before using used pads, so it took me a little bit of digging around to find them, but I was pretty sure I had them. Well, we'll see if I can show this well enough. Now, the DP is dual purpose, dual piston, whatever. So I figured out that I have to do it in 5/16 if I'm going to use the hard body rotor. That's enough of an advantage for me, as far as I'm concerned, to give up the 5/16 in plate thickness, since most of the other kit out there and that stuff that's running bigger brakes and everything is done on 1/4 inch. So I think the 5/16 will be an okay change. The other thing too is that, you know, this is the bracket for the dual piston, and the problem I had before when I was trying it with the 720 rotor is this was hitting here. I had a real hard time getting that to clear, and now there's lots of room. I'm holding it roughly in the middle there, and you know, that's about where it would hold, and so tons of room for clearance there. The other issue, okay, look at that. The other rotor for these calipers, V6 and 4-wheel drive, is a little bit bigger. So this is really close, but it's rubbing in there. So in order to run these, basically what it's going to have to be is you're going to have to take the little plate off here, and I'll do that here in a minute. Grind it down to where it's, you know, closer lip there, and then bend that tab more closer to the edge there. So we'll do that, see what kind of grief it is. You don't have to do it on the backside. The backside, there's plenty of room there. No big deal. So it would just be the 2 brake pads you'd have to do it to, and you could hand file that down and tap that over and that kind of stuff. So not that big a deal if you really want to run dual pistons. Okay. Yeah, you know, maybe nobody will do it. If anything, it's still a matter of this rotor is still the better choice, because then there's no wheel spacers, and the 1/8 inch wheel spacer makes it the wheel clear, the stock rim. But if I go any thicker, like 1/4 inch, to get more wheel clearance, it throws off the wheel studs start becoming too short. So let's see if we can modify the pad here, get the space we need. Well, the reality is, you can take these are the anti-squeal shims. You could take it off and leave it off and just use goop. I mean, you know, they goop these. I would think these would do a better job, but let's see. So you could hand file that. You could take a die grinder, you know, and cut that out. I'm going to take it over to the belt grinder. And I can tell you right now, this is not something I'll be offering. It's, you know, go buy a hand file and file these out. That's all there is to it. Now, I still got lots of work to do with these things, so I'm not going to bother with spraying them down with brake cleaner or cleaning them up or anything like that. But so we put that back on, and you can see there that so let's we'll get it flattened out a little bit there, and then let's cut a bit of it off. We really don't want it hanging out too far, so try to judge it to where there's, you know, about the thickness of the backing plate there. I don't know if this will cut it or not. Let's see. Oh yeah. That's pretty close to center. Alright, no overhang. Stays on. Nice. I like that. That's, you know, that's 5 or 10 minute mod. Alright, to give you an idea here, here's the difference. Dual piston pad, single piston pad. Okay, they are the same height-wise. So the dual piston has about 3/8 of an inch more on each side, so about 3/4 of an inch longer of actual contact surface, you know, before you actually wear down to where you're using the bevels. So that's part of the reason. The other reason for using dual pistons is it pushes evenly here instead of just pushing in the middle and causing this to bow. And then as it starts bowing, you know, it's not as effective out here on the sides. If you put a single piston on here, it would bow really bad, and you wouldn't get any real use out of the any braking out of the ends here. So I don't know how much more of a percentage that would be for brake surface and that stuff, but oh yeah, see, that fits. So if these came with pads, you know, the anti-squeal shims, they'd probably you could probably just snap some single ones right on there, because basically I ground it down to the same profile as the single piston pads. Okay, let's see if they fit. Alright, so there we go. So there it is sitting, and it should have the same clearance as the other pad, the single piston pad. This one's got a little bit more, but part of that is because this one doesn't have the tab hanging down. But that's plenty of clearance. Get that put on there. And I think what I'm going to have to do next is either machine a 16th off of this, which may not be very fun, or go cut another one out of 5/16, if I even have 5/16. So we'll see what happens there. Well, apparently I decided to try to shave the 52 thousandths off. Alright, I machined down the plate. Took about 52 thousandths off. It's not perfectly flat, but I'm sure it's close enough for what we're doing here. If you can't tell, I'm sick. Whatever. So you can see the gap's nice and even up there. We'll throw this one on real quick. Okay, now you can see why the shape of the bracket changed. I used to have these tabs come up here to reach for the holes or whatever. Yeah, that's looking pretty good. Now, well, that thing has to go. I'll just bend it out of the way for now. Alright, let me see if I can find the bolts that hold these on. Alright, so I took it out of the vise, put it down on the bench, and what I want to see now is how close these holes line up with the tabs and everything. So I got my 3/4 inch end mills out again, and the those holes are pretty darn tight on 3/4. So drop it down to that one. There's really no play there. You know, I don't have it tightened down that way, but look at that. Bolt them, boom. So then something else to factor in too is the standoffs here. They're going to be plug welded on the top. I might have to perimeter weld them too, considering how tall they're going to be. But they will be the full diameter out all the way to the edge there. So I wanted to make sure I had plenty of meat. Oops. I wanted to make sure I had plenty of meat hanging here, so that when I burned in the plug there, you know, I could melt into a nice thick flange here without any problem. So that's the dual piston on a 720 hub and a hard body caliper, rotor rather. So the next thing to do is to, not the next, but something else to check on this too is if in fact with the, I'll have to put the spacers in here and tack this and everything and get it mounted up so that I can put a stock wheel on it and see whether or not that clears. It should, but you know, I gotta test it. Wrong time to be making assumptions. All right, okay, that's a little better. I got my 1/8 inch of space in there like I should. Okay, let's see if I can get it moved to the bench like the other one without messing it up. So that should be just about right there. Now the spacing between these holes is exactly the same between the two brackets. They're 100 millimeters. Whether or not the angles are the same and stuff like that, I don't know. The point isn't for the brackets to be able to be used in both scenarios, either or. It's so that I can use the parts in either situation. Okay, which means then I can get one main bracket cut and the ear, the tabs, one of those cut, you know, a bunch extra times. Because and that'll keep the cost down and stuff, so. I always have to go in with a tap and clean these threads out and that stuff. I don't know where the caliper is that I've been using that had all that done to it, but whatever. Okay, there's that one. This thing's a little too stiff. Alright, it's in there now. They're down in too far. So, you know, there's a chance this just may not work. Alright, that's pretty close to centered on there. Let's see. Wow, 880. Pretty damn similar to the 900. Okay, well, so what that's telling me is if these are both 900 the way it's set up, the one bracket will work for either caliper. I just have to tweak it a little bit. I'm going to have to go in here and maybe lengthen these just a hair or move them up a hair in here to get this closer. And, and then I'll have to double check them and make sure it doesn't move these too far. Interesting. That's a whole lot closer fit than I thought it was going to be.